As I find myself getting older, I realize I start to decide on which game to play next based on intrigue and curiosity rather than seeing an exciting trailer. Since middle school, I've always been interested in the RPG genre of games, and in the last couple of years, I've really set myself out on a mission to play the ones that are critically acclaimed. Some of the first RPGs I've tackled recently were Golden Sun, Earthbound, and Xenoblade. But there are two huge series that were left wide open, and those were Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. I had a 3DS, and the remake of Dragon Quest VII, Fragments of the Forgotten Past, came during this RPG adventure that I set myself out on. I found out that this specific game in this series had a huge following in Japan, so I picked up the game right away and started playing, eager to see what has created such a die-hard fan base. Now, just as a little bit of a warning, this review is coming from a newbie to the widely known game franchise. So this is going to be my initial impressions and not coming from somebody who's played the original 6. But I do have to warn you too that this is a long game. Like, be ready to set aside a significant amount of time because this game is pretty long compared to the other 3DS games that were made around this time. I believe my playthrough took around 70 to 75 hours, so if you're gonna play the game, just be ready. The story is unlike any game I have played yet. You're the only island in the middle of a vast sea, and you're told it's really always been that way. It seems really suspicious, and your friend Keifer agrees with you. You sneak around and whatnot, eventually leading you to find some fragment, some stone, and this fragment is then placed into the Shrine of Mysteries, where you, Marybelle, and Keifer are then warped to an unknown island. You do normal heroic stuff, save the day, and then you leave. When you're sent back through the portal, the same island appears in your once empty sea. From there you find out that a group of heroes have actually saved the island at their time of need, and that they're described as your party. After that, your job is to go to the worlds, the Forgotten Worlds, save them, collect some more fragments, revive the Almighty, and defeat the Demon King who has caused this whole situation in the first place. I didn't want to give too many spoilers here because each town has its own unique situation and very different characters there. They range from animals and humans switching places, a sword that steals souls by siding with the enemy, and a musician brainwashing people at night, but you don't know what his intentions are, etc. Overall, I really liked that story. Some of the island stories felt a little disconnected, but most of them were really incorporated into the main story very well. One of my favorite parts was battling my way through the All Trades Abbey arena, but I heavily recommend playing it yourself and seeing what parts you like. Before I go any further, let me talk about the significant changes that came when remaking the original game to 3DS. The most significant one is the addition of a radar mechanic that helps finding these stone shards easier. If that wasn't enough, they also add a character that gives you hints along the time. And at the same time, they also incorporated a system using Street Pass. You can bring Street Pass stones to immigrant towns to unlock new dungeons and extra story scenes. Fishbell also now changes its name to Pilcard Bay, and Rexwood now changes its name to Bali Mali. There are a couple more, but those are really the most noteworthy. Now, let me say how much I love the design of these characters. The art style is very closely related to Dragon Ball, and that's because the main artist for both of these is Akira Toriyama. If you love the show Dragon Ball, you're sure to love the character design for these games. Now, I'm first going to mention the hero, or Avatar in this case. He's the son of a great fisherman and longtime resident of Pilcard Bay on Estard Island. He's the main protagonist of the story, and what's unique about him is he's a silent character. You don't see a huge personality from him, but I didn't feel like that took away from the story. You never had somebody to explain a lot about him, and you really shouldn't either. He's you. I really like this kind of character as a main protagonist because it doesn't really matter what type of player you are. It doesn't matter what your personality is because you fit into the story with a quick connection to the character. In some games, it makes more sense to have a character who's more vocal, but I really think it was the right choice to have a silent protagonist for this game. Marybelle. She's the daughter of the mayor, and she's from her and the Avatar's homeland, the hero. She gives off a bossy personality and can seem kind of condescending. She still gets along with her friends, but they're kind of reluctant to bring her on their adventure. She might not be the strongest unit in your party, but she can hold her own in battle. I found Marybelle not to be the most interesting character, but she definitely reminds you of somebody who you probably knew in grade school. Marybelle added some nice variety to the party, but she didn't really leave a big impression on me when playing the game. Prince Keifer. He used to just be called Keifer in the original game. He's the prince of a starred island and he's the heir to the throne. However, he doesn't really like his royal lineage. He spends most of his time with you seeking out excitement and adventure. He's incredibly strong, but eventually falls in love and stays behind in the past. I really like Keifer's progression in the game. He starts off as a young guy who just really wants to be a kid, but his royal status just keeps getting in the way. He doesn't stay in the party for very long, and his exit showed me how in-depth that this whole party system mechanic can go. Through the beginning of the game, he constantly chooses the hero over his family, and ends up abandoning his family altogether. Later, you found out that he became the guardian of the roamers, and is biological heir to almost an entire culture. His thrill and adventure would initially give you the thought that he's immature, but that's not the case at all. He's just a young man. He's searching for his own path, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. Ruff, formerly called Gabbo. My favorite character in this game, easily. Without playing the game, this is going to sound weird, but stick with me a little bit. Anyways, Ruff is a white wolf pup who against his will was turned into a boy. You can see him acting like an animal at times, but he agrees to travel with your party to protect his family. After a while, you see more of his animalistic side when he chooses to stay with you out of a sense of loyalty. One of the reasons he's my favorite over Keifer and the hero is because he really doesn't have a reason to stay with you for so long. He's a loyal companion. He doesn't do it for the excitement initially like Keifer, Marybelle, or the hero. He does it to watch out for his family. Hell, I'd even argue that Ruff has probably the most initial maturity out of any character that joins your party. Really the only other person who has that initial maturity coming up, which I'm going to talk about next, is Sir Mervin, but that's not getting ahead of myself. If you ever played Earthbound, you know that you're given the option to name a lot of things, including your dog. At the start of my game, I was walking around with my dog Comet, and he even helped me out in battle a couple of times. Ruff is a character who really bridges that separation between humans and animals, and does so without changing any of his animal-like instincts. And I think that was huge to incorporate in the party. Sir Mervin, formerly Melvin, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but oh well, he is a fighter, and he really excelled at what he did. And he fought against the Demon King long ago. He was petrified in stone by the Almighty, so if the Demon King would ever rise again, he could fight against the evil. He does well in battle, but since he's from a different time, he's often confused. So when Mervin entered the party, he was very interesting. I really didn't know what to think of him at first. He had some foreshadowing, but he was just very different. I honestly thought Ruff was an easier fit to the team than him, but either way, he was there to stay. Ashe, formerly Ira, a dancer for the roamers whose goal it is to revive the Almighty. She's also very skilled in swordsmanship, but she doesn't really feel for the roamers as much. She never wanted to be a dancer. The party initially finds her as she wants to find the legendary Torment player. With the party at her side, she leaves with the Torment of Truth to find this player. There's not really much to talk about with Ashe. Not a lot is known about her backstory, besides that she's good. She trained a bit. She's just not as memorable of a character to me. She was good in battle, but that was about it. Sure, she danced and helped the roamers achieve their goal, but she really didn't do anything else memorable. There was kind of a loose connection there. It wasn't an issue when playing, but I just found myself wanting to know more about the character, rather than the fact that she was a huge part in helping me defeat the Demon King. This game also gives you the ability to customize your party with different classes, and some of them are pretty funny. You can dress up Ruff like a sheep, or even make your avatar a slime in battle. The choices were endless, and I really enjoyed this aspect of the game. You allowed a lot of customization in the group, and ended up getting you to experiment on how you perceived your final party to be. I'll cover more of this later, but for now, all you need to know is that I really liked the class system. With this class system in place, though, the battles became a lot more fun. If you're familiar with turn-based battle mechanics, there's not a whole lot more to mention. You have health points and you have magic points. Kind of like a normal RPG battle system. Magic points might be named something different, but they serve the same purpose. Dragon Quest VII does it a bit differently though, by letting some of the magic points be used when you use some of your abilities as well, so you don't always have to use spells. I always found it best to use a designated healer with two other characters to have the option to heal if needed. The battle system isn't really too complex, and it probably won't take you long to figure it out. The music is something that needs to be mentioned. Unlike other RPGs that I've played recently, it doesn't entice you with some intense-sounding boss battle or some odd lyrical combination, which Xenoblade Chronicles X, hint hint wink wink, but it gets you with the light-hearted orchestral pieces by setting the tone of the game perfectly. I honestly expected to find myself tired with the theme right away, but it really never did. For when the game was off, I found myself humming the theme when you ran from town to town. For me to like a game, the music has gotta be there. Without good music, the game feels like it's lacking, but I feel that's one of this game's biggest strengths. It's the kind of music that gets stuck in your head, but you never really care that it does. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the critiques that I have for this game. Obviously, the game has some flaws, and one of the first ones that sticks out to me is the beginning of the game. I really don't mind setting this game down in the beginning repeatedly, because it never really caught me with anything. Golden Sun had me loving the game within a couple hours, and Earthbound hooked me almost instantly. Even other games centered around a turn-based mechanic like Paper Mario had me loving some part of the game really early, but Dragon Quest VII had nothing. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad game, I like it a lot. There just wasn't anything to engross you or hook you into playing the game right away. And what's crazy is that it's longer in the original PlayStation version. I think one of the reasons that this was done was to show the lightheartedness that the game has. I don't think the developers wanted you to have some action sequence grab your attention. They wanted to really get you with the intrigue of your island, being the only one in this world. They put you in a small world for an RPG that just keeps growing and growing till the end of the game. I liked the idea in theory, but it just didn't work out for me. I did the exploration and liked it, but I would always end up forgetting to talk to one person and eventually getting stuck. What hooked me is when I finally got to that class system. Now this leads me into my next critique, which is my question for the developers, is why did they not put the ability to access the class system way earlier in the game? You spend most of the beginning figuring out how the mid to end game will be, but you only have your default party. The most you could change is switching their weapons and armors, but that's always equipping the strongest ones. I like the class system a lot, but you don't reach All Trades Abbey until 15 to 20 hours into the main game. For me, customization is huge in an RPG, and I like games where me and my friend can play one of these games and have completely different outcomes in boss fights depending on how we built our characters or our team. As a kid, I loved talking with my friends on which starter Pokemon they picked, or in Pokemon Red, or which Pokemon they used to help get them past a really tough gym leader. Comparing which strategies worked the best depending on a different set of moves or types left me with this excitement of trying something new on a different playthrough. You can easily do this, and I love the system, but not until you reach All Trades Abbey. So before then, all the characters just feel the same battle-wise. Now this is a complaint that comes up a lot, and I feel like I have to mention it because it did pop up for me as well. And that's like the long mid-game with these random fragments as well. It's a common complaint, but it was made significantly easier with the addition of this radar mechanic. But sometimes it wasn't possible to get the fragment until you finished some other part in the game. One of the fragments hidden in the Desert Palace especially wasn't able to be obtained until later in the quest, and it was frustrating for me to track down that one piece I needed to continue with the adventure. I know it was worse in the original game, and the radar mechanic helped a lot, but there was a lot of downtime because I was just stuck, and I didn't know where to go next. Now lastly, I want to talk about the really high encounter rate. The best way I can describe the holy water, which is used to ward off enemies, is like repels in Pokemon, but worse. It only wards off the weaker enemies like it does in Pokemon, but they still appear as sprites on like the battle. Before I used holy water in the dungeons, it was very common for me to be sandwiched in between two enemies right after I finished a battle, so I had to run into another one only a couple seconds later. This was fine. I was fine with all the enemies on like the big map when you're traveling from town to town, but in the dungeons they really couldn't be avoided. Some enemies covered the whole width of the alley. The encounter rate is it's just such a hard mechanic to get right in an RPG, but the holy water didn't help nearly as much as I thought it would. Even with it, I would still get stuck into a random encounter due to an enemy taking up the whole path. Maybe it was just my bad luck, but this really frustrated me a lot. I'm playing Bravely Default right now, and the ability to adjust the encounter rate is something that I really appreciate. And I really wish it was there for this game. Dragon Quest VII is a game that I enjoyed a lot. I like it because a lot of characters I can relate to my childhood. Marybelle was just like my neighbor Stephanie, and Keifer was like my neighbor Zach. I could picture the old gang getting together and seeming like we were on a bigger adventure, even when we'd just be doing something as simple as throwing rocks into a lake. The settings were completely different, but I felt like I already knew the characters. It's obviously not without its faults, which I already talked about, but overall, I would really recommend it to anybody who's a fan of RPGs. Now, I really hope that you like this review. Let me know if you want more of these, or which Dragon Quest warrior is your favorite. Oh, and I can't wait to get my hands on Dragon Quest VIII.